Buenos días. Bonjour. Ohayou gozaimasu. Es lunes. Nous sommes lundi. Getsuyobi desu yo. It is Metacognition Monday. It's time to talk about how your brains work. And I am slowly working my way through some of the techniques we use in class. I use every single technique I can think of to help you. And this is a designer method, meaning some group of people sat down and wrote this method rather than it just kind of organically evolved after hundreds and hundreds of years of teaching language. But there are some fun parts to it. This is community language learning, and I'll warn you right now for my français, étudiante de français et estudiantes de español, I don't use this quite as much with you because you can make a lot more connections. For Nihongo no gakusei-san tachi yo, occasionally I'll pull this out of my back pocket because you're eager to have a conversation, but you don't quite have the vocabulary yet. So this takes advantage of the fact that you have an effective filter. That's that little voice in your head that says, oh, I don't want to say arre out loud because if I do, everyone's going to laugh at me. I don't say it very well. So you know what? I just won't say anything out loud. And then guess what? You never learned to say arre, okay? They have what they call language counselors instead of teachers. So what happens is the language counselor gets you all sitting in a circle. Okay, my Japanese students, I've had you sit around the table with a big sheet of butcher paper between you. But everyone's sitting in a circle, and everyone's just staring at each other for a long time until somebody gets nervous and breaks the ice and says something in English. Okay, and at that point, the language counselor comes behind the person and translates the sentence into the target language. And then you have to repeat it, and then you have a conversation going, and it's all completely 100% translation. You're saying something in English, the language counselor is translating it for you, and you're just repeating verbatim, sound by sound, whatever the language counselor says. Okay? The language counselor gives the translation in phrases or in chunks because the whole sentence might be too much. And when you're ready, you're going to record bits and pieces of the conversation. And this conversation should take no more than 10 minutes. This is not like TPRS, which is supposed to take the whole class or a long period of time. In the middle of the circle used to be a tape recorder and a tape, because I'm old. But, nowadays we can do it with a phone, okay? I like to do it with a piece of paper, but at any rate, what you should be doing is after the language counselor stands behind you and tells you what to say, you say it. When you're comfortable with it, you press record on the tape recorder in the middle of the table, and you record yourself saying the one line. All right, now if this person answers and the language counselor comes over here and translates what this person said, do you like pineapples on pizza? Oh, gross. No, I hate pineapples on pizza. And the language counselor will translate that. And then when this student is comfortable, this student will press the button and record themselves saying it in the target language until you have a conversation. And the conversation is maybe, it's 10 minutes for the activity. The conversation is maybe 4 minutes long. Maybe not even that. Now, before anything else happens, the language counselor comes in the middle of the sentence and says, how do you feel about your conversation? I will listen and validate. Okay? And probably one of you is going to pipe up and say, I don't remember anything. And this is honestly the main reason that I don't use this method all that much. It's because I'm looking for things that give me a lot of bang for my buck in memory retention. But with this method, it's okay that you don't remember anything. The language counselor says that's okay because your attention was focused on the conversation. And language is all about communication, and you were communicating in the target language. That's the important thing, according to this method. Okay, now we listen to the conversation that you recorded. And I find that recording my students' voices kind of raises their affective filter. They'll giggle at how they sounded and such. But that's okay. All right, so it's supposed to be like this low stakes thing, and that's why the language counselor is always validating your feelings. Like, how do you feel about it? Oh, that's okay. And then, we're kind of deflating that affective filter. That's what the validation part is for. Okay, so you listen to the conversation and chances are you don't remember what we said, but everybody in the circle will remember bits and pieces of it, and you can reconstruct the meaning just by listening. And I don't have to tell you anything really about, oh, don't you remember you said this? I just wait for you guys to remember. Okay, so I start writing on the board. I write down your sentences that you just said to each other, and I write them down so that we can work on the conversation that you just created. But I don't want you to copy them down yet, because right now we're just working on kind of absorbing them, I guess. All right, and then we start picking apart the sentences on the board. And I'm seeing if anyone can make the connections or see the patterns when I write, what it means next to each sentence. And I'll draw arrows. This is syntax surgery, okay? And I do this in English because obviously if we're doing community language learning, you don't have enough vocabulary yet to do it in the target language. But I'll start sneaking in the words for like keiyoshi or adjetivo, okay? I'll start sneaking in the grammatical terms. All right, now you get to sit back and relax while I read the transcript that we've just written on the board a few times. These are your sentences. You have just said them to each other. I am writing them, whatever we said during the conversation. I read it to you a couple times. And you know me, I like to get hammy as I read because I think that gives you more comprehensible input, and I might grab a prop or something. But in the actual method, you don't have to do that. You just read the conversation a couple times. Or you're listening to the language counselor reading it. And the language counselor has a better accent than you have, so listen. Okay, so the next part is the human-computer TM, and I think they really trademarked this, okay? So you control me. You're going to say a word from this conversation that we wrote down, or you're going to say a sentence number because I numbered all the sentences that you said, or a phrase or something, and I come and stand behind you and I say the phrase that you want to work on, and I keep doing it, and I keep saying it, and you keep repeating it until you're satisfied with how you sound. That's Saturday morning breakfast comics right there. Okay, and then hopefully your effective filter is really low that you can do this one at a time while everyone listens. And then I put you into groups of 3, and you're creating new sentences and phrases based on the transcript. So you should be able to, we've picked it all apart. You can put the words back together in unique and creative ways. I come around and correct as needed, and then you read your sentences aloud to the class. And then I play the recording 2 more times. And then we play with the transcripts over the next week or so. We conjugate the verbs. We make a recording of your new sentences that you wrote. We reenact the script. That's always fun when I give different people the lines. We add a fake person to the conversation. We rewrite it. We change a sentence. We change a word. And then, only then do I let you copy down the sentences. This might be on day 2 or 3. I don't do it quite that way. I don't follow this method religiously, but this is the method. Okay, so here's the sentences. You just said them to each other. Obviously, you copy them down now, but I'm pretending that this was our script. All right. Then the language counselor comes back in the middle of the circle again and listens and validates. Because remember, this whole thing is about lowering that effective filter. Hopefully by this point, you say you're more confident and relaxed. So I don't use this method all that much, but occasionally as a change of pace, I pull it out of my back pocket. So that's that method.